So really, what are we talking about when we say cleft? What does that mean?
So a cleft lip is a lip that's not fully formed. Okay. And a cleft palate is commonly described as a hole in the roof of the mouth. Okay. So basically, if you're trying to drink or eat, the food can come out your nose, and it's very difficult for mothers to feed their babies, which is a huge problem.
All right. So feeding becomes a problem, as you say, and it affects everything, whether breast milk or breastfeeding or solid foods and all of that.
Absolutely.
And so deaths do occur because of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the statistics say that about 1 in 10 actually die before their first birthday. It's depending on the severity of the cleft. Mothers have a hard time feeding, whether it's breast milk or even trying to, pour the milk into the baby's mouth. Right. It's very hard for them to keep the milk down. So it is something. It's not only a cosmetic issue, cleft lips and cleft palates. Right. It's actually a huge problem in terms of the health and livelihood and of the babies. Of the baby. Yeah.
Kia, tell me about Operation Smile, and so then we can begin to put the two together. Cleft lip and palate and Operation Smile. Who is, so to speak, Operation Smile?
So Operation Smile is a global organization. We're in 60 countries currently.
60?
60, yes, 60. Wow. 13 in Africa. And we're continuing to grow, particularly within the Africa region. We have more than 5,000 medical and non-medical volunteers on our database from around the world. All right. And we started about 30 years ago, I think this year.
So when did you come to Ghana?
The first time we came to Ghana was actually in the late 80s, early 90s, when we were just beginning as an organization. And now we've returned with a long-term commitment to our partners in the Ministry of Health. So
what brings you back this time, and what are you doing? What's happening on the ground?
Sure. We are currently in the midst of our large-scale medical program taking place at Ridge Hospital. Okay. And we have so far provided, I believe, about 80, 85,
we're at 100
free surgeries since Monday. And we've provided free medical evaluations to
over a 4-day period.
4-day period.
Provided 100 free surgeries.
100 free surgeries, absolutely. We have quite a large volunteer base, and we have some 30-some fantastic Ghanaians that are working alongside the international volunteers, which is exactly what we're trying to do, which is develop the local volunteer base and add to the existing cleft infrastructure here.
So who actually does the surgery, so to speak? Do you bring in surgeons from outside, or Ghanaians participate in it? How does it work out?
Absolutely. We actually we have a credentialing process to make sure that only surgeons that have a lot of cleft experience are able to be credentialed by the organization. So we did bring in 6 international surgeons, and actually our medical team's made up of over 8 nationalities, represented by countries in Europe, in Africa. We have Kenyans, we have Ethiopians, British, Americans. But we have actually, from the Korle-Bu Plastics Department, we have 3 senior surgical registrars working with us. We have a surgeon from the military hospital. So we really are trying to engage with the local medical professionals here. We have fantastic nursing staff from Ghana. So it's really a collaborative effort.
You're saying that you're back. You came in the 80s, you left, you're back here. How long are you here for now? Is it for a period of time, or are you here for good?
Well, we're here for good. I mean, we currently have a 5-year MOU signed, but we have long-term plans. The idea is to grow, like Natalie mentioned, the local capacity, and to build up eventually a local foundation to run the programs without as much international support. We're currently about to celebrate 25 years in Kenya, where they run most of their own programs and really just have the international programs as support and to address backlogs. So our ultimate goal is to stay here for a very long time.
Okay. Natalie, you heard Kia say Natalie, but I'm Ghanaian. So I'll stay with Natalie and, and ask you, how are you able to raise funds to give free surgeries, 100 in 4 days?
Well, that is a great question, because We actually, in Africa, what we're trying to do is build local capacity, local sustainability.
Right.
So we actually, we're working in 13 countries in Africa, and we've really relied on the local companies, local organizations. We have some support here from, great groups, Lions Club, LDS. We have support from different NGOs. World Vision's been a huge support. Hunger Project. So really what we're trying to do is engage in the community and really make this a local project, locally owned. And so we're trying to really mobilize the community here, the business community, the different organizations and groups to come on board and help Ghanaian children.
Okay. Yeah. So do you have any funding coming from outside?
We do actually. We have actually 14 Italians on the team because the Lazio region actually provided some support. They're very there's a close relationship between Ghana and Italy, so we got some support there. And we do have support internationally for certain expenses and some medical companies that support internationally to provide some of the supplies free of charge and so forth.
Great. Yeah. How much would a surgery otherwise cost were it not for Operation Smile?
It's difficult to say. For our organization, we estimate about $750 per surgery, but the reality is every country is very different. And most of the time, the patients that we attend to, regardless of the cost, it's too much. So for us, it's just about providing that free service.
$750, trust me, is a lot of money for many people in Ghana. That's a fact. How do you find it to be a very common situation in Ghana, the cleft palate and lip? What is your own observation of the terrain?
Well, actually, one of the most interesting things that we found from this mission that we didn't know about going in was, our largest age group is actually 26 and older. So it was actually actually the older population that were coming in large numbers with primary cleft lips that had never been operated. So for us, it's incredible, and we want to catch the babies when they're babies because there's hearing problems that go along. A lot of babies have burst eardrums because of excess air, feeding problems, speech abnormalities. However, some of these people have lived their entire lives, never gone to school, never been part of society, incredibly stigmatized, and they came in droves for this mission.
That's great to hear. Kia, tell me, because of the allied problems that may come with this, speech she mentions, hearing problems she mentions, and most of the people who came being above 26 years, are they condemned to live with these conditions for the rest of their lives, even though they will look better after the surgery? What happens to the other conditions that Natalie just mentioned?
That's a good question. In terms of palate surgeries, a lot of times the later palate surgeries don't correct speech as much as when they're younger. So in that particular instance, yes, they would probably still continue to live with that condition. And we do provide support in as much ways as we can. We have speech therapists on board who help work with the patients in that regard. But in terms of social stigma, it does make a large difference, particularly if it's a lip, because it does sort of create a different image to society.
So I believe your advice then is that Operation Smile is in town, and if you have this condition with babies, the earlier you deal with it, the better. Is that right?
Absolutely. And we're just actually asking, we're trying to create a list, a database, so that we have an idea of what the need is and where's the largest populations, because we do our first mission or two in the capital, usually in countries, but then our idea is to move outside, to go closer to the patients.
I was going to ask you about that since you mentioned Rich, and you can see I actually have Rich Hospital written and circled to ask you how because if even at Rich Hospital you can get 100 surgeries done in 4 days, I'm imagining what is happening in the far reaches of the country. How do they access what you have to give? How do you bring that to the table? Do you expect them to come to Rich for now, or that you will go down there? And the question again is, if you go down there, would they have the medical facilities for you to use to correct their problems?
And that's a great point. We actually are we do have representation from each region in Ghana. So all 10 regions, we have patients coming from all of them. And what we're trying to do, we follow up with our patients every 6 months. And so we're going to come back end of May to follow up and ideally follow up with, in the regions themselves.
Okay.
So picking out 5 regions and doing the assessments and actually asking new patients to come in so we can create a database.
Okay, look at what we have on the screen now. I mean, can you talk us through what we are seeing?
Absolutely.
Sure.
That's a cleft lip. There's different severity to it.
Is that a Ridge Hospital?
Yeah, this is Ridge Hospital.
One of the theaters that we're working in,
right.
along with some of our volunteers, in the midst of one of the surgeries.
And you can see it's a huge mix of different nationalities.
Right.
This is one of the surgeons, and basically. Ridge Hospital has been an incredible host, and so everyone from Ridge has been a huge part of making it possible. We had medical volunteers from Corlebu and different hospitals across the country actually coming to give their time free of charge.
That's a serious thing. I mean, I actually saw a picture of a young boy whose eyes and all of that are completely out of shape.
Yeah.
Will all that be restored?
We do what we can. So that's a palate actually, which is kind of a harder surgery to watch. The lips is kind of a beautiful surgery to watch. It's like a puzzle piece coming together.
Wow.
We do what we can, and we try to follow up with our patients from start to finish. So what we can't do on this mission, they get a priority card to come back and be taken care of on the next mission.
Okay.
We're also trying to refer patients as well to the existing center in Corlebu. We work very closely with the head of plastics, Dr. Mpoma,
Right.
and so we're trying to work together to better the cleft infrastructure.
I wonder what life would be without medical science. Really, I keep saying that. Medical science and engineering, they really are the wonders of our modern times.